You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Hello and welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are actually talking about on Monday, the 13th of November. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Mia Freedman.
And I'm Jessie Stevens. Yay! And look, it was a bit of a false start last week. I apologise. I'm horrified by what occurred. I walked in today, I said, take two. Jessie's back. I would like another parade. Look, I'm very ready to be back now. I'll tell you that. I got the COVID. Whole family got it. Can confirm, still terrible. You don't want it. Didn't leave the house for like 5 days. And now I'm just excited to be here.
Well, we're very happy to have you and glad you're back to Jessie's self.
Yes.
On the show today, is Taylor Swift crowdsourcing a husband? It's a theory that I'm floating after those pics of her and Travis pashing next to a portaloo in Buenos Aires. Plus, whatever age you actually are, do you ever feel like an adult? What makes you feel that way and what makes you feel like a bumbling child? And a convincing conspiracy theory about the sexiest man alive. But first, Jessie Stevens.
In case you missed it, Schoolies is now about self-care.
No.
And that's a real 180. According to an article in The Guardian, mindfulness meditation teacher Michelle Eccles has launched an all-girls Schoolies alternative on the Sunshine Coast where students are offered a 4-day self-care journey, including yoga, meditation, mandala art, I don't know what that is, mocktail making, cooking, Zumba, didn't know we still did Zumba, love that.
It's back.
Horse riding, there will be no alcohol, smoking or vaping allowed.
Is that even Schoolies? If there's none of those things.
I've texted a link to this story to my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She's due to leave for Schoolies in about a week.
Yep.
Just, do you want to maybe change your plans and go on a self-care journey?
I could see her doing this because the Gen Zs,
Can you imagine?
they're drinking less alcohol. There were 2 other details in this article that I had to share that just really tickled me. The first is it opens with a student who isn't doing Schoolies because she is going to Japan for the theme parks, shopping and culture. She said, in the media, they're put out as constant parties and drinking and we're like, ugh, that's off-putting. We want to experience other stuff too. The privilege, it's like, no, you can just afford to go to Japan. Like I think a lot of people love to go to Japan.
Yeah,
but
to experience the culture and eat sushi.
You're just going to Japan. And the other one, Mia, this is you. Okay. One woman spoke to The Guardian about her son going to Bali. You have one son left, right? Who's going to finish school. This is you. And he's going with 5 of his friends. And she said, there was no way I was not going to be there. It wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Mooly.
The article goes on, it was lucky she was there because one teenager had their wallet snatched on their second day.
Oh, no.
And another one had a peanut allergy and she had to help with the translation. So she stayed at a hotel away.
Yeah.
But she turned up.
She was there.
Yep, wallet lost, peanut allergy, mum's here, mum can fix it.
I'm pretty hands-off with Schoolies, you'll be pleased to know. Your husband called me first day of Schoolies, lost my phone. Called me on someone else's phone, lost my phone, panic stations.
Yep.
Ended up finding it a couple of days later in his pocket.
It's called resilience.
And look where he is now. Everyone's talking about 2 videos this morning and they are both about Taylor Swift. Being the Taylor Swift correspondent on the show, I'm here to tell you what's going on. Taylor's on her world tour. She had a little rest for a few weeks. And yesterday she was in Buenos Aires performing a concert there. Videos that you may have seen, they've absolutely gone off everywhere all over social. They were taken by fans at the show. And one is of Travis Kelce, who's her boyfriend, her new boyfriend.
And remind me, who's been a little bit out of the loop, so he is a footballer, correct?
It will never not amuse me that he is called a tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Apparently that's a sport team.
And that's
tight
a position.
End is a position.
Yeah. American football.
Is he good?
Apparently so.
He's the Taylor of American football.
Right.
And he
he's
also
top of his
has
game.
podcasts and he's a very,
And so far, nice guy.
allegedly.
He's like a David Beckham, right? So
love it, love it.
superstar,
Yep.
but more articulate. So this is new.
Shade
It's
to
all
David
David.
Beckham.
Stop
Yep.
it.
So she changed the lyrics to her song to reference the fact that he was in the audience. And instead of singing,
Sing it.
Karma is the guy on the screen,
Yep.
she sang,
Karma is the guy on the Chiefs.
All the dancers laughed. It was like they didn't know.
They did. So they were like, oh my God, listen to what she said. The 2 videos that are going around, the singer's dad and Kelce were in the audience, standing next to each other in the VIP section, and they like high-fived each other and danced, and he was like so chuffed that she said his name. The second video that's going around is at the end of the show, she leaves the stage, runs into his arms, he's waiting for her backstage, and they kiss next to the portaloos that are placed backstage, which I thought was considerate for anyone who needed to go to the toilet.
Their minds.
People are losing it. Holly, you're so down on Taylor. What's the problem?
I'm not down on Taylor. The reason I wanted to talk about this today, because I know what the Out Louders are thinking. They're thinking, come on, why are we talking about Taylor? Did Mia make you do this? And on the record, she actually didn't. I came into the meeting today. I said, we need to talk about this because like yesterday, those two videos were just everywhere I looked. And I've got lots of friends who are grown-up, sensible humans who are so obsessed with this relationship.
I thought it was so hot. Like I thought it was really sexy.
And I was trying to decide why we're so invested. Obviously, we're invested because Taylor Swift, and as we've discussed many times, she changes the world every time she opens her mouth.
You mean culturally invested?
Yeah, culturally invested in this relationship and like, oh my God, they're going to get married and isn't it wonderful and all these things. And then I'm very cynical about it because I'm very happy for Taylor that she's happy. I think she's great, etc. But all this very public, performative, whatever, I worry. I think Jessie worries too.
Yeah.
We worry. I'll say why I'm worried and we'll see if Jessie agrees. They've been dating for maybe 3 months. Maybe.
No, a few weeks.
Well, since September, like
September, October.
2 months.
Yeah, 2 months maybe.
2 or 3 months. So, of course, they're at this stage where they're very, very into each other because that's when you are, right? His expression when she sings his name and all that, well, not his name, but anyway.
That is so Manchester of you.
I know.
You're just feeling like yucky.
I am, but I'm also like, it's like that friend who starts dating someone and they just talk about them constantly and they go, we're going to get married. This is it. He's the one and all that. And you're thinking, well, maybe, babe, but also fast on. Fast on makes me really nervous.
Yeah, we do worry, and we have been saying that. We've been shaking our heads and just saying we worry for Taylor. I worry for Travis. I just don't care about him as much.
Yeah, exactly.
But I worry because it is like taking your boyfriend or girlfriend, inviting them to the family Christmas after 2 weeks.
Or the work Christmas party.
Yes. And then you've got some explaining to do because people are going to follow up. That's annoying for you if things fall apart. But the reason why I think people love this so much is because so many of us relate to that feeling of you've started a new relationship and you're going, I'm going to be different. I'm not going to be so all in. I'm going to play it cool. I'm not even going to ask if we're serious. I'm just going to. And then before you know it, you are running to their arms backstage and yelling their name or yelling a reference to them in front of the world because that's what love makes you do. It makes you stand on stage
amazing.
And scream about it. And so the fact that she has so owned that she's not chill and that she is shamelessly enthusiastic about everything, which is the opposite to the cynicism that we've come to expect. I think people love it. News is dire. Things are not good. And so watching these two people shamelessly love each other and to see a man in a concert, usually with footballers' wives, you see the women silently applauding, going, oh, look, I'm so invested in him and his little match. To see him at the sideline in awe is just every woman in their 30s going, I just want a man who worships me.
Oh my God, that makes me nervous too. We're setting up a lot of very high expectations for these people.
Are we though?
Laura Brodnick, who's our entertainment boss, has a couple of interesting theories I want to explore with you, Mia Freedman, as the Swiftie correspondent around here. She says what you say. Of course, Jessie and I agree that one of the reasons why the world is obsessed with this story is because times are tough, the world is dark. Just give us something nice to think about.
Simple.
And she also says, you know, movie studios don't make rom-coms anymore. We're like writing a rom-com around these two.
It's like fan fiction.
Yeah, we're all creating a romantic comedy around the biggest pop star in the world this big meaty footballer and how...
I saw an article that was writing about this and then it seamlessly went into, and then it's a Super Bowl final and then he proposes to her at halftime and then it's the biggest moment in that. And I was like, wait, that hasn't happened. We're getting carried away.
And then her other theory, which is interesting, is this. No one is more invested in their fan base than Taylor Swift. It's a big part of the secret of her success, right? And Laura was saying that she thinks that Swiftie has been like audience testing, like A/B testing what kind of boyfriend they all think she should have. Because she had the bad boy, Matt Healy was the first post-breakup boyfriend that did not like it. Massive pushback, lots of issues. No. This guy, the Swifties seem to love. They're like, well, we're into this. And let's face it, we all know, well, I fully subscribe to the idea that the person you'll end up with, not saying these two will, it's because your light's on. It's the right time for you to settle down, the right moment. You've done a lot of things you wanted to do. That's a reference from Sex and the City, which is like when two people will finally get together, it's because they're like cabs driving around and both their lights are on at the same time. Whereas before, your light might be on, but someone else's is off, and you could have been a perfect couple, but you'll just never be at the right moment. Swifty's light is on, and she's auditioning husbands, and the fan base like this one.
That is so sexist.
No,
Why
I love
is it?
Taylor Swift
She's
because
got all of the power here. This is not sexist at all.
I relate to her because she's never turned her light off. And I'm the same. I've had my light blinking for years and years, and she's had hers going. And then finally, I think maybe she's met
But
a
also
match.
his light's on, so it's not sexist. He was on The Bachelor or something, wasn't he? He desperately wants to settle down with somebody, doesn't he?
But what does settle down mean? I mean, she's said before that she doesn't want to have kids, or she wants to, but she feels that bringing a child into this world of her being so famous is not something that she'd be comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Now, she might not still feel that way, but she has said that at a certain time. So she's 33. So if we take her biological clock out of it, which might be true, might not be true.
Happy to do so.
This idea of settling down. So she had a 6-year relationship with Joe Alwyn, who is an actor, right, that ended about a year ago. The idea that that somehow failed because they weren't married and didn't have kids, a lot of beautiful art came from that. Banging songs came from that, and even they collaborated on some songs, and she wrote a lot of songs about him. So to say that this needs to be more than just two people who are at the top of their game,
Having a good time.
who are both incredibly attractive and into each other, I don't know. I've said before
I
on
agree
the
with
show
you, but
that
I think the culture is writing a story that that's what they want. I'm not saying that's what I want, like just have lots of sex and be happy, but I think we are writing a narrative, and them being very public about it is kind of buying into it, which is that this is somehow, a fairy tale.
So everything we've ever seen of Taylor has been very restrained, right? We've never seen her publicly wildly in love. Maybe because she wanted to be, maybe because her partners wanted to be, maybe it was a decision they both made together, who knows. But this is the first time we've seen her giddy about a guy. I think that they're clearly having really, really great sex. And I think the reason that people are obsessed with it, I watched that video so many times, running off the stage, jumping into his arms, because I thought, I've been with my partner for a really, really long time. I remember that feeling of like, I actually cannot, I'm running into your arms. She jumped into his arms and they were kissing, and I was like, oh, they should get married. They should just, but then of course the sensible part of me, and Jason and I started hard and fast, but that all went to shit because, as you say, warning signals fast on is not sustainable because you don't build those foundations, even if you're not globally famous, right? And so I'm excited for it. I think it's very hot.
Yeah, I think it's a
really
joyful
hot,
moment.
and I feel nostalgic because I'm like, I've got a lot of really wonderful things about my marriage, and I adore my husband. And he'd been away for a couple of days, and I was really excited to see him yesterday.
Did you run up in your sequins?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I was on my way to the laundry with some dirty clothes.
I love seeing that phase of love, that, lust, passion, whatever it is. But I guess the reason why I worry is because it's so public.
Yeah.
There's something about him in the crowd next to her dad.
I know.
And her dad in that video is kind of like he knows she's going to sing that because he's looking at him all the time.
Yeah.
And then he's got a sign and he's already playing along with the fan base.
Yeah.
He's already sort of part of the folklore. So, pardon the...
And you're jumping forward to the part where they break up, which they probably will because everybody does, right? And also fast on, fast off. That's when celebrities issue that statement, that please says, respect our privacy at this time. And it's very hard. It's like a celebrity who talks about her weight, because she signed a weight loss campaign and then goes, I don't want to talk about my weight anymore. Having a relationship so public and then going, I don't want to talk about this person anymore. It'll come to define them both.
Yeah.
But then what do you do?
And I guess it's that thing of
it's the world now,
live your life anyway, dolls. Don't worry who's watching.
I'll be the princess. It's a love story, baby. Just say
question. Do you actually feel like an adult? Ignore your age and just sit with that for a second. Do you feel like a grown-up? That's a question posed by The Cut this week. Does anyone feel like an actual adult? The author, Catherine Jezza Morton, says that while she feels like an adult in her home, when she's at kids' sporting events or parent-teacher evenings, she says she feels as inept as a wayward teen. She writes, if we're all cosplaying adulthood, who and where are the real adults? And this got us thinking about the context in which we actually feel grown up and when we absolutely don't. In this article, they're sort of more limited to parenting. She kind of crowdsourced. And the theme seemed to be that people feel like an adult in private, in their homes, when they're making a child a meal on like the first day of winter when you get all their warm clothes out and you're just feeling really capable. But then the second they step foot outside and they've got to make small talk at the park, they say, I feel like I'm right back in high school dealing with the dynamics of a group of women or something. Before I ask you, we asked a bunch of people in the Mamamia office, when are the moments where they feel like an actual grown-up?
So the first time I really realised I was an adult, not that I feel like it all the time, but I baked a cake. I lived out of home for the first time. I baked my first cake and I was like, wow, can't wait to eat this after dinner.
I felt like an adult when I sat down with a financial advisor when I turned 25 and I learnt about my risk profile and I learnt what ETFs are and I started investing and I have an investment portfolio and all the buzzwords, and that really made me feel like I had just arrived at adulthood.
The time that I most feel like an adult is when I'm referred to as a lady. Like if I was to pick something up and give it to a child and the parent says, oh, thank the nice lady, that always makes me feel like I'm an adult.
Holly, do you relate to that? When do you feel like a grown-up?
I very much relate to that actually, because I feel least like a grown-up around any very competent mothers.
That was a recurring theme.
Particularly my space of insecurity is like competent domestic mothers.
Alpha mothers.
The mothers who all their Tupperware has lids that fit, who always know exactly where the Panadol is, who always know teachers at school and who's good at what and all that kind of stuff, and they know all the other parents. I feel so insecure around those women. And the reason why it's like, and a lot of my friends are that person. I'm not criticizing that person. When I read this, I was like, it's because I don't just feel insecure. I do actually feel like a slightly sullen, resentful teenager who's like scuffing my foot on the floor like, well, does that really matter anyway? Like, is that even like important? Because I genuinely feel like I missed a memo somewhere that to be a proper grown-up, particularly mother, we're not just talking about motherhood, but you should be that person who does like know when to bring out the winter clothes and put the and has got the school uniforms in all the sizes, and I'm just not that person. It's like hosting, like people coming to my house for like I never will feel more like a teenager than when I'm like, I'm supposed to look after you. Like I don't know how to do that.
Am I ordering the food? Because I'm definitely not cooking it.
Yeah. But it's also interesting because when I do feel like an adult, because obviously I'm 51, right? And I am an adult. I've been an adult for a long time, is when I do consider the responsibilities I have, life I've built, the achievements or not that I have. I do feel like an adult. I'm like, I can do a lot of things and I know a lot of stuff. And I wonder if men feel this way, but there just always feels like a kind of area of life that I never got the right notes for.
I read that a lot of people, space where they feel like an adult is on public transport. Do you feel like an adult when you're on the train?
I guess I do.
There's something about going somewhere as an independent person.
And also
that you're
catching the train, actually instead of missing it, which I frequently do also.
Yes. It is. It's an adult space.
And if I ever do have a plastic container in my house with a lid that fits it nearby, I'm like,
look at
nailed it.
Mia, have you ever felt like an adult?
It always freaks people out when I try to behave like an adult. Well, it freaks my children out when I try to behave like an adult. I think you identified something, Hol, in that I feel like an adult when I have a lot of mental load at home. Ironically, I always feel resentful when I have to be an adult. It's like, shouldn't someone else be doing this?
100%.
So I feel like an adult when I nag my children about their jobs, when I'm doing all the washing, like all of those drudgery of domestic life makes me feel like an adult. when I occasionally do something like if my children are sick and I'll bring them like soup and a something and a something, they'll go, oh, look at you pretending to be a mum. Go you. Go you. It's like, ouch. Or if I like tried to help one of them with their homework a little while ago and they're like, why are you even asking me this? Like, why are you pretending to be a mum now?
We used to do that to Mum when she would bring out a jug of water with glasses.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, oh, look at you. You'll be looking at the mums in the movies, trying to be a mum in the movies.
Exactly. But the times that I don't, probably the biggest one is if I ever have to have any interactions with the school principal at my children's kids' schools.
Authority figures.
Or teachers.
Teachers are really triggering for people.
Parent teachers. Sometimes when I'm driving a car, I'm like, I can't believe I'm allowed to drive this car. And then also when my kids were younger and I'd tell them what to do and they'd do it, that was always like, wow.
What about doctors? In the doctor's office, I always feel like I'm being told off. Like,
me too.
You know, we
yes.
On a serious level, we talk a lot about how women's health isn't taken seriously and, you know, a lot of space needs to be made up there. But like I literally have this thing where I sit in the doctor's surgery and I feel like I'm in trouble.
Me too.
And like they're the grown-up and I'm not. They're not making me feel that way, but that's just...
It's something about the authority. I feel like I'm in sick bay or something as a kid. I've found that throughout pregnancy visiting the OB. And, you know, there's that joke that's like, is anyone worried about this teen pregnancy? But then you're like, wait, no, I'm 32. But you feel as though someone's going to flag it and go, you can't have a child.
Or when you drive away from the hospital for the first time with a newborn, you're like, wait, are you just letting me do this?
Can't be right. And I kept thinking, no, I understand that adult women have babies.
Yeah.
But this is an exception here.
I like feeling like a child sometimes, like if I'm in a doctor's office, whereas you feel like you're getting told off, I'm comforted by someone else being in charge.
Yeah,
right.
I find it really comforting
safe
in that kind of context to not be an adult. One other time I feel like an adult is when I have to complain about something, when I have to speak to the manager.
See, I'm the opposite. So in any situation, whether it's like a restaurant, the other day I had to return something and they were being a bit annoying about it, I go very primary school kid. Like I go very head down, just like, oh, don't worry about it. Because I'm like, I'm a child in an adult world. I shouldn't be here.
I want to ask you, Jessie, because in a serious note on this, one of the reasons I think that no one ever feels like an adult is because when you're a child and you look at adults, you assume they know everything.
Yep.
That they don't make stupid decisions, that they don't mess things up. One of the big moments of loss of innocence is when you realise that adults do, whether it's your parents or people around you. So I think one of the reasons you never feel like an adult is because we never feel like we get to that space. But one of the things I always think, because as I get older and I know more things about more things, in lots of ways I'm less certain about things. Do you know what I mean? Because I know more. So I'll look at a leader and I'll be like, wow, they have to make some really important big decisions. I'm like, how do they know that they're being the adult in the room who can make that decision? And, you know, when you see a leader who clearly is not the adult in the room, so obvious and extreme example, Donald Trump, he is like the petulant child in the room. How do they know that they're grown up enough for that? I don't know that I would ever
I think
feel that.
there's a time in adulthood where you go, uh-oh, we're all pretending.
Yes.
And that's a worry. I mean, pretending to different degrees, but like the surgeon. Everyone has a moment where they're like, I shouldn't be holding this scalpel. Surely. Surely we do.
Outlouders, if you want to make Mamamia Out Loud part of your routine 5 days a week, or just get more of us in your ears, we release segments on Tuesdays and Thursdays just for Mamamia subscribers. To get the full access, follow the link in the show notes, and a big thank you to all our current subscribers. We love you.
Who is the sexiest man alive? Jessie?
Pedro Pascal.
Obviously. Mia?
My husband.
Oh, you don't think that.
I'm trolling
You don't think that.
I'm trolling you. I don't think he's my personal sexiest man alive. Knowing what that is in the culture, Travis Kelce.
So you're both wrong, obviously, even though you're also right. Jessie Stevens,
Yes,
Pedro
thank
Pascal should have won this. Obviously, it's Brad Pitt, but that's a problematic response.
I think he's already had his crown.
And also, he's not allowed. He's problematic now in 2023. So when it came time last week for People magazine to crown the official annual Sexiest Man Alive, which we're all stunned is still a thing, but we'll get to that in a minute. I thought maybe Ryan Gosling because Ken. I thought maybe Travis, as you say, because Taylor. I thought maybe Pedro Pascal because he's very cool. He hasn't won it yet.
It usually is like a bit zeitgeisty.
Yeah, and The Last of Us and all that stuff. No, it was Patrick Dempsey.
Hi there, my name is Patrick Dempsey, and finally, I am this year's People Magazine Sexiest Man Alive.
Now, friends, Patrick Dempsey, if you are scratching your head a little bit, McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy. How naughty is that?
All right, everybody, it's a beautiful night to save lives. Let's have some fun.
Also, the suitable husband in Sweet Home Alabama.
Do you know when this was announced, someone texted me, wait, didn't he die?
He looks great, right? Anyway, shot on the cover of People, officially People's Sexiest Man Alive. Why him? You're all asking. That's what the entire world was asking last week.
And it's not, to be clear, it is not about his age.
No, because also he's hot.
About his relevance.
Yes.
How old is he?
57.
Yeah, he's 57 and he looks great and he's still sexy. This is not about Patrick, right? But just an interesting choice because, we hadn't been thinking about Patrick Dempsey. When we asked everybody who it was, no one said Patrick Dempsey. Our aforementioned entertainment boss, Laura Brodnick, has an interesting idea about why. She said he was basically the last man standing. So you see, the Sexiest Man Alive, you didn't have to participate. It just was a thing, right? So they'd go, Brad Pitt, it is you. Johnny Depp, it is you, and they would always have to act a bit embarrassed and go like, oh yeah, I feel like the Sexiest Man Alive when I'm told to take the bins out, whatever. There's a whole shtick around it. But these days, the Sexiest Man Alive participates, does the photo shoot, is involved in the promotion.
Does an interview with people.
Obviously, brand building. And they nearly always have something to promote. That's why you do it. Why else would you do it? You look like a bit of a dick. But no one was allowed to promote anything this season because of the actors' strike, except for Patrick Dempsey, who is starring in a movie. Well, he's not even starring. He has a part in a movie called Ferrari. Well, I don't know, bit part, but Adam Driver and Penelope Cruz are like the top people in it.
So why didn't they give it to Adam Driver?
He's sexy.
So sexy. And it had an exemption from all the restrictions on the writers' strike stuff because something independent production something, right? And so he was allowed to be interviewed, shot, promoted. And that is one of the reasons perhaps why it was Patrick Dempsey.
Okay, I've got some behind the scenes insight into this. I reckon they would have tried for Adam Driver and Adam Driver said no.
No.
I think they probably had a long list. They probably tried for Travis Kelce because that's not, he's obviously not writer strike, and any sports person they could have done, he said no. So I remember when I worked at Cleo magazine, we used to do the Australia's Most Eligible Bachelor,
and
50
that was
bachelors.
A big deal at the time. Like this,
Huge
everyone
deal.
would talk about it. It would
Huge
get coverage
deal.
in all other media outlets.
Who was going to be named? And one year, I wasn't the editor, I was just quite junior, but one year I'd been involved in helping to make the list. There used to be a panel and we'd all vote on who we thought it should be. And so the guy that we voted for was Dave McCormack from Custard, who is, I think, the voice of Bluey.
Yeah. Or Bluey's dad, right? Bluey's dad, maybe.
Yeah. So what happened is that decisions made at lunchtime, the person's then informed, and then that evening there's a party and they have to do media, there's a press release that goes out, et cetera, et cetera. The editor called him, said, mate, it's you. And he went, oh, wow, called her back half an hour later. I'm not doing it. I can't. Obviously, Custard was like this cool band. He decided it was just not a cool look. Yeah. So she was like, but you have to. The press release has already gone out. It's an hour till the party. Oh, no. What are we going to do? And so he's like, no, if you call my name, I'm not going on stage. I'm not even coming to the party. I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing anything.
And that was because it was incompatible with his band.
Uncool.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Except maybe he should have thought that before he agreed to be in the list in the first place and participate in the shoot.
100%.
So panic stations. She rings another guy on the list who was at the lunch, Eric Banner. She explained.
Did he take one for the team?
He took one for the team. She explained the situation to Eric Banner and he went, sure, I'll do it.
I'll be your man.
And look at Eric Banner.
And that is what an eligible bachelor would do.
It is. I want to know, Jessie Stevens, if you think it's even appropriate that we still have Sexiest Man Alive.
I think it's hilarious. Every year it comes out, we're like, what? Haven't we cancelled this yet? And it's like, we meant to cancel this, but everyone gets too tired and annoyed at the choice. Ever since Blake Shelton, I think that was one everyone hated.
And everyone has won this for context. Like, obviously, Brad Pitt, your Hemsworth's won it. Gosling, I'm sure, has won it.
No, Ryan Gosling
outrageous.
absolutely will not accept it because he is a serious actor.
Yeah, for sure. Idris Elba has won it. John Legend has won it.
Apparently, Andrew Garfield has turned it down and Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
They've said absolutely not.
Do you know who's also won it? And I know this because I was listening to an interview on Trevor Noah's new podcast with The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And Trevor Noah was sort of genuflecting about how amazing The Rock was, and you've done this and you've done that, and you're a billionaire and you've got this thing. And The Rock interrupts and goes,
Sexiest man alive. Oh.
Sexiest man alive, of course. We'll throw more of these in. I apologize. Sexiest man alive.
And he mentioned it like 2 or 3 times.
That's so funny.
Like quite seriously.
Okay, what's funny is that Patrick Dempsey, the other thing that I think he was trying to promote a little bit is a charity. He has a charity because about ovarian cancer, that's quite nice. But it looks like photos for like a watch catalogue, like he's kind of in his home and just
it's almost like
sexy.
satire.
It is. It's satire.
It's like a throwback to a more innocent time.
The rule is you've got to be in on the joke. So you've got to be like, my kids are going to give me shit about this.
I'm going to say to my wife, you're talking to the sexiest man alive.
They always have to make those jokes.
Every year.
And
Same
then
jokes.
I was watching, Glamour Woman of the Year?
I do.
One of the people who won this year was Hannah Waddingham, who is Ted Lasso in Ted Lasso.
She's awesome.
And I watched her speech. She came up and she quoted Meryl Streep, and it was about feminism and women, and then she touched on the war in the Middle East and the children. And she had to acknowledge all of it. Was a Nobel Peace Prize speech, right?
And she's just one of like a dozen so that they can make sure that there's cultural diversity in there, different sexualities, different...
Selma Blair won, and she was this advocate for disability, which is great.
Caitlyn Jenner has won before for trans women.
Meanwhile, Patrick Dempsey is like, people are very enthusiastic when you juggle. That helped my confidence a lot. He's talking about literally being able to juggling.
Like actual balls.
Yeah, he's like
I
I was a bit of a magician. And I'm like, the standards we hold men to.
Yeah.
Patrick Dempsey, you had a career 20 years ago. This is like me winning a soccer award from year 8.
I'm going to argue back against that, even though I agree with it. The Sexiest Man Alive is purely about objectification, right? It just is.
Why
it's
can't women just be objectified?
Exactly. We've fought so hard for women not to be objectified.
It's going to come out of Jessie's mouth.
Why do we have to have meaningful opinions?
It's so true.
Take it up with Gwyneth's mum. Sorry, Meg.
Sometimes it's exhausting.
So basically what we're saying then is that women fought really hard to not be just viewed as sexiest woman alive, but the men are still just allowed to enjoy it.
Yeah.
How long for?
Put this on our list as something we've got to protest against. I want him to have to make a statement about politics.
Yeah.
But I will say about Glamour Women of the Year, I went really deep on it, right? And I was reading this article and it said, before heading into cocktail hour, our VIP guests took a breather in the hashtag SmartTox Lounge, which is hosted by Injectables brand.
Anti-wrinkle injections.
Yeah. And then they went up the stairs and the stairs were sponsored by migraine medication. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? It's just all,
But that's what this is, right? So like any media brand needs tent poles. People have managed to hold on to the Sexiest Man Alive. What was really interesting to me is that on the day we knew it was going to be announced, the Mamamia office were all talking about who was going to be the sex. And I was like, how have they managed to hold on to that relevance in a world that is so distracted? But that's exactly what it's about, is it's about them having that tempo so they can sell in the advertising, but not presumably for injectables and migraine medications because men. I have a recommendation that I think is echoed by one Jessie Stevens. It's actually your sister, Claire Stevens, who put me onto this. It is a podcast called Ghost Story. Everybody is talking about it.
Have you ever seriously pissed off your in-laws? A few years ago, I started investigating my wife's family history, specifically whether my wife's great-grandfather actually committed a perfect crime. And my in-laws, well, they're not exactly thrilled about it.
If you come out with a piece that says he was a murderer, then I will be sorry that we ever said we would contribute.
So, why am I doing this? Well, the woman who was murdered, she was my wife's great-grandmother. And I think she might be haunting the house I grew up in.
Trying to explain to Mia what this podcast is going to be quite challenging. So I'm going to top line. It's by Wondery. It's hosted by a British journalist called Tristan Redman. He's worked for all the big, proper legacy media brands. He's got lots of credibility. He doesn't believe in ghosts, but he was contacted a while ago by a guy who lives in his old neighbourhood who said, when you lived at this particular house in this particular place, did anything funny ever happen to you? And Tristan goes, yes, now I think about it, it did. In my childhood bedroom, a vase used to move around, lights would flicker on and off. It was a bit spooky. And the guy goes, that's funny because 2 other families who've lived in that house also report spooky things. Tristan goes, podcast, great.
Someone knocked on the door and said to the owners, does that woman still visit that room at the top?
Right. So it's a ghost story. We're starting there.
Well, love it, love it.
But then it gets more complex because also what happens is Tristan is married to a very impressive woman, English, like academic, I can't remember what else she does,
like
amazing things.
Amal Clooney, basically.
An amazing person who also comes from a very amazing family of like philosophers, and Hugh Dancy's a movie star and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, in the early days of their relationship, his wife, not then wife, but girlfriend's uncle comes round and goes, oh, my grandmother was murdered in the house next door.
So weird coincidence, right?
It's the same house.
Coincidence.
Well, it's the one next door. So the one that has been haunted, he's going, next to the haunted house.
Oh my God, it's him. It's her.
There's my grandmother was murdered.
Yeah. So spooky ghost story, wild coincidence. Tristan goes, you know what? We're going to make a podcast about this. And it sort of touches on, is the haunting real? But then it gets so interesting because they find out, obviously dive into the story of how the great-grandmother was murdered and who murdered her. And this turns out to be a story that no one in the family, like his wife's family, really wants Tristan to be digging into with his brilliant, unbelievable investigative journalism skills. Like Tristan interviews like 9 experts in forensics and detectives, and he goes in, like the level of detail is wild, and he records all his meetings with the family, and they're all very posh English people, and they're all like, I think at this point we really don't want to know any more about this. And he can't stop picking at the scab. He can't stop investigating the story. It is so great. Ghost story. It works on so many levels. It's so clever. It's on whatever podcast app you're into. Get it in your ears.
And if you're looking for something else to listen to, on last week's subscriber episode, Holly, Mia and Alfie had a throwdown about Goop CEO Gwyneth Paltrow after a new bum selfie featured in Bustle. And they asked the question, is Gwyneth posing in her underwear actually setting business women back? It has started a very heated conversation.
I think it's setting women back, not just business women.
Well, as Jessie Stevens says, why can't Gwyneth just be objectified sometimes?
Yes, exactly. We let men do it. I thought we were about equality.
It's such a fresh thing to happen to a woman as well, being objectified.
A link to that episode
really directional and
will be in the show notes.
We can't stop arguing about it even when we're not talking about it.
Infiltrated group chats.
Thank you for listening to Australia's #1 news and pop culture show. This episode was produced by Emeline Gazilas. The assistant producer is Tahli Blackman, with audio production by Leah Porges.
Bye.
Bye.
Shout out to any Mamamia subscribers listening. If you love the show and want to support us as well, subscribing to Mamamia is the very best way to do so. There is a link in the episode description.